I would not take him over Jabari Smith because the more I watch Jabari tape, the more I think about it, the more I talk to people around the NBA. I think Jabari's shooting ability, his toughness, and the potential for him to be a small ball 5 at the next level, if he can get there, makes him be the kind of guy that I think can win you a series. I think he can.
I agree with you.
I think that there is very real potential for him to be like Paul George. And Paul George for a while was a top 5 player in the NBA. And I think that's what Jabari Smith can get to.
Yes.
I would be open to hearing arguments for Shaden Sharp over Paolo, over Chet, and over Jaden Ivey.
What about Keegan Murray? Would you pick him over Keegan?
Yeah, it depends on who's drafted, because
it depends on where we are.
Yeah, if we're talking like, okay, look, we need a piece to be able to fit into the. We got all these guys, and it's kind of working, but we need some floor space, and we need a piece. Like, I think you can make the argument for Keegan Murray over Shaden Sharp. All that is to say, I think that there's a lot of really good players at the top of this draft. But to me, what's so fascinating about this draft is it's the first time in like forever that there is no kind of obvious number 1 pick.
Right.
Here's a thing that's mind blowing to me. Like, it's a no brainer who the number 1 pick is going to be, or it should be. Like, Paolo Banchero is so much more NBA ready. He is such a better scorer all around than the other 2 candidates, and even Jaden Ivey, who I'll throw into the mix just for the heck of it. But he's 6'10", 260. He's 6'10", 260. Fanti, you saw him in person. This dude is enormous. He's got great short, like small area quickness. He's going to benefit.
I'm more of the belief that Jabari Smith turns out to be a better scorer in the NBA than Paolo Banchero. Like, I'm more in the Smith as a scorer than I am a Banchero as a scorer. I'm still concerned about Paolo Banchero's perimeter game.
Yeah, so I'm with both of you guys. I think the point that you made,
we took contradicting statements there. How could you be with both of us?
Because I think you're both right. I think Jabari Smith is going to end up being the better scorer long term. I think Paolo is the most NBA ready. I have very real concerns about the fact that Paolo shot 31% from 3 this past season. He's not a great shooter. Jabari is a great shooter, right? I have concerns about the fact that Paolo is not. We see all these comparisons to Chris Webber. You made this point, T.O. I think it was a brilliant point. Chris Webber was a basketball genius and one of the best passers we've ever seen out of the big man. Paolo's not that.
Paolo shot 34% from 3.
34% from 3. Okay. But he's not Jabari Smith.
Funny that the Ringer compared Paolo to C-Web. They did.
A lot of people made that comparison.
I don't agree with it. I don't like that one. C-Web was such a savant passing the ball. Like, that was the whole thing. If you ever watch Chris Webber play with the Kings on that show before Mike Bibby got there and ruined that freaking, Mike Bibby's a fine player, but like when they lost Jason Williams and they traded him directly for Mike Bibby and the Grizzlies, I have never been so hurt in my entire life as when that happened in 2002, I believe. 2001 or 2002. One of the worst days of my life was when Jason Williams was traded away from the Kings, but I digress. Chris Webber.
Theo, how many times did you try to do the elbow pass when you were going?
I did it all the time. I did the fake behind. I had a fake behind the back to a dunk. I'll put that on Twitter here.
You couldn't have done that in a game. You didn't pass.
It was in a game. It was in a Swedish game. It was in a Swedish league. It was in a pro league.
It wasn't an ACC game.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. But no, Chris Webber was a great passer. Paolo Banchero is fine. I think his comparison, you need to kind of take his comparison with the evolution of basketball. These guys are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the guy that I see, and I said this to Goodman, and he almost fell out of his chair. But I think he's like Paul Pierce. Look where he operates from. He's best about 15 to 17 feet out. That jump shot is good. It looks good. It's a little slow. It's got a small hitch in it. He's got good small area quickness. Paul Pierce was a very good athlete. When you saw him in person, he was deceptive with his athleticism. Paolo Banchero is that plus 4 inches. Now, is he the dog that Paul Pierce is? No. But go back and watch the film of Paul Pierce, where he scored, how he attacked the defense, how he read feet. A lot of those things are very similar between the two. Now, obviously, what's weird about this?
You know what's weird about Paolo? I'm curious your take on this, CO, and you too, Fanta. I feel like Paolo has kind of become the modern day tweener, because to me, he is like a through and through 4-man, right?
Yeah.
He's a through and through power forward, and power forwards don't exist in the modern NBA. So he's like what a tweener is right now. Like, is he switchable? Can you play him at the 3? Can you have him guard 2s? Is he big enough to guard 5s? If you put him on Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid or one of these other, or Giannis, is he going to be able to defend them? Can he be a rim protector? Can he shoot it from beyond the arc? He's kind of like a Karl Malone, right? And Karl Malone would not work in modern basketball. That is my biggest concern with him.
He know what it is? 44 threes.
But he was inconsistent from there at times and a little bit passive from there at times in key areas of games.
But he was a 53, 34, 73 guy. Like, that'll get better. He was he 18 years old? 6'10",
you know what he is?
255.
He is a reflection, and this is not who he is. So for the record, I'm not, because you guys, somebody would take this, like somebody from Iowa would take this the wrong way. So growing up, who did he watch? Who did he watch? He watched the King. He grows up, he watches LeBron James. So in his mind, his game has to be molded around the best of the best. And for me, guys, I don't know if his whole package, I think it translates in the immediate term. But when we're talking about 15-year pro that's doing it at this level, if you're going to be that type of player, you have to be the end-all, be-all, able to score in a variety of ways, do it over a long period of time. And that's what they're drafting on. So when you sit there and say he's the best, I think Paolo Banchero is the guy who has the best chance to impact the team immediately. But I think Jabari Smith has the best chance to both do it immediately on a level and level up as his career goes longer. The one I can't figure out is Chet. I can't figure it out because I love that he embraces physicality. But just because you love to embrace it throughout your entire basketball life, like you say with Keegan Murray, that the NBA athlete is different. Chet Holmgren, the NBA athlete is different. And I'm not convinced you can handle that game in and game out. And there's some people who might scoff at me for saying that. But I still have that concern. But for me, Paolo Banchero is someone who I think is going to make a living for a long time in the NBA. I'm not calling him a bust at all. But these are executives making decisions here that are based, their jobs hinge on this. I think Jabari's going one.
Can we frame this conversation before anyone clips this stuff out and gets mad at us? We're framing this conversation in the fact that we think all of these guys are at worst a top 4 pick in the draft, right? I think I would probably take Paolo number 2. I might be able to get convinced to take Jaden Ivey over him, but I'm probably taking him with the 2nd pick in the draft. I think he's very, very good. When it comes down to picking between these 3 guys, you have to start picking nits like this, right? You have to start breaking down what they don't do great. That's why we're having this conversation. I think I feel very confident saying that all 3 of us really, 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 really like and think that Chet, Jabari, Paolo, and Jaden Ivey, and Keegan Murray, for that matter, are all going to be very good NBA players. It's about figuring out where you want to
very good NBA players and get multiple contracts and make 9 figures worth of money.
Yes, they're going to make a ton of money.
And for the record, if Banchero falls to Houston at 3, which I think he will, because I think Jabari Smith is made for the Magic, fits their organization, the pick fits. I think the Thunder organizationally like to take shots and could take the shot on Chet. And then I think the Rockets at 3. If you're the Rockets and you've got Jalen Green and you're sitting there and Paolo Banchero's on the board, you might as well be picking one if you're Houston. If I'm a Rockets fan right now, I'm sitting there saying, yeah, Jabari and Chet are the best 2. Because if you're sitting there at 3, according to, and T.O., this is where I'm with you. Imagine if Paolo Banchero, who could turn out to be the very best, and that's what makes this draft is so fun, that he could be a Houston Rocket with Jalen Green, who has only scratched the surface. If he falls to 3, that for him is a big fall for the kind of talent he could be. Could Paolo Banchero be a generational talent in the NBA?
I will say this, Fanta. In 2017, there was a long conversation about who would you take number 1, Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, or Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, the guy from Duke that shot 34% from three as a freshman at Duke, fell to number 3, and look at what he's doing right now. I think you can make the argument if you were going to pick one person for the next 5 years in the NBA, where does Jason Tatum fall on that list? Pretty high up, right? So keep that
over
mind.
The other
keep
two
this conversation in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how some of these things kind of go, and it doesn't always end up being the number one pick ends up being the best player